Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jake, this is Nadia, this is Buddy, this is Sedona, and Babu is downstairs. Today we are talking about the 7th installment of the Mission Impossible franchise, Dead Reckoning Part 1, Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3, Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation, Mission Impossible 6, Fallout, now Mission Impossible 7, Dead Reckoning Part 1. How did you feel about this film?
Holy mother. I thought it was 10 out of 10.
Wait, really?
Oh, yes. I was in love.
Wait. Are you being serious? You actually
I'm being
liked
very
it?
serious. And it's so funny because I don't like Tom Cruise. So I could completely like him in this film. He's a great actor. He really is, and a great entertainer. And
that's how they get you.
I just don't want to be in Scientology. It was so good. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly funny. Very well made. Really long film. I will criticize that, but I don't know if I can criticize that because every film these days are so long. So I just kind of like not even put that in the rating anymore. But yes, I feel that way about like so many movies. It could have definitely been shorter, but I can't believe this is just part one. You know?
It felt like a full story though.
It did until the ending. You could see why it's part one and at the ending because it's a non-satisfying ending. But it's kind of like how I felt with like the recent Spider-Man movie.
I feel like that was way more of a cliffhanger. This had more of a resolution.
No, but I could have, like, you could see how it could be a conclusive film. There's a pivotal moment where you can determine that it's a part one without seeing the title, that it's a part one versus like actually an entity in its own. Right? Yeah. So
Wait. Tell me your experience with Mission Impossible series first, because have you seen any other Mission Impossible movies?
I have.
Which ones?
I think I've seen like the second one, but I fell asleep to it.
Oh, the second one I think is considered probably the worst one. A lot of people think
I fell asleep on it, and I was just not as excited. But I watched Top Gun with you.
Yeah.
I thought that was good, and then so I was like not like completely closed off watching this one, but like second movie it was okay. I haven't seen the other films. You've told me you want me to watch it.
Mission Impossible is such an interesting series because it has a lot of different like flavors and variety, except for like the last Christopher McQuarrie directed films, which would be Rogue Nation, Fallout through the end of the series, the next few entries. So, but the first one is directed by Brian De Palma. It's a great movie, kind of cheesy fun. I love the original. It's great, but it's very different in tone than the later movies. The second one is Total Outlier, directed by John Woo. Insanely corny. It's like Agent Cody Banks, but taken dead serious.
Which I used to love that film.
I know, but it's like, it's so funny watching it now.
It's funny because like this film, obviously I'm gonna get like comments about this comment, but I'm gonna say it anyway because I didn't watch Mission Impossible until I met you. Some of the music in this movie, because I watched Agent Cody Banks like as a kid, I was like, this reminds me of Agent Cody Banks. Obviously it's like the other way around where Cody Banks is taken off of like this.
Yeah.
But you know, for me it was switched around because I watched that movie first and it was like a childhood nostalgic thing. And then also, I really like the emotions behind this one. You know, I really love how it wasn't just like Top Gun. Not to compare it to that one, but because that one was like the last Tom Cruise film that was action filled. That was my, like, retrospectively, I don't know if I said this in the review or not, but I definitely feel like that one lacked a lot of emotion. It's very much like more.
Really? I thought that one had way more emotion than.
It was very stereotypical emotion. I'm not talking about the movie as a whole. I'm talking about Tom Cruise's character. Miles Teller in that film, for me as I remember it, the reason why the movie was so emotional.
Okay, yeah.
Because of his father and the arc around that.
Yeah.
But I feel like Tom Cruise in this film, he carried the emotion.
It's funny because
within his shoulder, and he didn't rely on other characters narratively to actually give that to him.
I disagree completely.
Felt like I thought you would, but in Top Gun, I kind of felt like Tom Cruise was only emotional because of his supporting characters around him, and he was kind of like the action person who was that guy who was like, I have a broken foot, but I'm gonna keep filming and be proud of that kind of thing.
Well, here's the thing: is my issue with this Mission Impossible film was with the emotional stakes, and I thought they did a couple of things I thought were a little cheap with the emotional stuff, and I think that It's funny how you love it so much and you haven't really seen a full Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I can see why that makes sense because they actually do a story thing in this movie that's sort of a retcon of Ethan Hunt's backstory, which we haven't seen before. And I thought like, well, I've seen the Mission Impossible movies. Why did they have to add this thing and shoehorn it in here? And I was like, I don't really buy this. But it's interesting.
It was great for
worked for you.
Yeah.
And I think that as a movie, yeah, it works great. But there are some things I actually think still Fallout is the better movie. It's shorter. I think Henry Cavill just adds so much to that movie. This movie had a plot that was way too convoluted for its own good. Confused at certain points in the movie. I thought there was way too much talking. I got a little confused with what the threat was in certain points. The movie is at its best when it just goes into, we're in our next action set piece. Like the action is brilliant in this movie. It's so good. Haley Atwell is a fantastic addition to this series. She's the thief. She had great chemistry with Tom Cruise, which you don't always find in Tom Cruise movies, but they had like some great, like, I was thinking of like Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise in Night and Day, which I think was also a Christopher McQuarrie movie. Just like really funny action stuff. So
the ending was so funny, even though it was heartwarming. I just loved like
Haley Atwell, she's the actress.
Yeah, she was so good.
She's great.
She was amazing. I think like Tom Cruise was good, but she was amazing. She was annoying, not because of her, because of the way that she was written in certain scenes where I was just like, but then you kind of see the way that she portrays her character to make it also understandable why she's being so annoying at certain scenes. Like you really see the struggle that she's having. And I just think like certain actors are able to play, even if it's like it could be written like that's something that like the script itself for her, like it could have come off as completely annoying, but she made it in a way where it was annoying, but it was also understandably annoying, and you're kind of rooting for her. And at the end, she turns around, and it becomes more and more funny. So, well,
I feel like she carried the heart of this movie, and you know what's funny?
She did, yeah.
I think there's an interesting parallel to draw between her character and Phoebe Waller-Bridges' character in Indiana Jones, you know, because you said she was annoying too, how she was like the thief trying to like have personal interests, you know, don't you think?
I think it's completely different.
Well, because they handled it way better in this movie.
No, the backstory of the character is completely different, I think.
It is, but it's kind of like she's the morally gray character that has
morally gray, grow. But that's the similarity just ends there, where you just don't know if they're gonna go the dark side or they're gonna choose it. They're like in between, in the purgatory, trapped in the purgatory between good and evil, and they get the choice. Do you want to choose good or evil? And then you don't 100% like you hope that they choose good. You think they'll choose good because that's the most predictable thing, but because you just also don't know because they're morally questionable. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to get into spoiler section so that I can talk more about those scenes. Yeah. What would you rate it? Because we went in with different expectations. As you know, I was way more excited for this movie than you were. I think it surpassed your expectations. Yeah. I don't think you were super excited. However, it didn't meet my expectations completely. Of course not. Tell me what your rating is. I had issues, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Of course you would. What's wrong with you? Because I don't know why I'm taking it as a personal attack. Because there were great things in this movie, but it also felt at times like they were kind of making it up as they were going along in terms of the story. I didn't love the villain character, Gabriel, as much as other villains in the Mission Impossible series, and I thought that the stakes were a little too complicated. Again, this is a part 1, so there is way more exposition than usual. You see this problem in a lot of part 1 films. It's not just that. And it's a lot of setup. It's not just that. It's like a very... Okay, I'm glad that you talked about this, because this is one thing I want to get to before we get into spoiler section, is that there's a lot of AI in movies these days, I feel like. Like the AI threat? Yeah. It's hard to do because it's... They're going to take over humans. They're going to kind of like make us into... It's hard to have an AI as an enemy because it's an abstract thing. Well, not if it's like made into its own entity. It's a little bit more complicated in AI. Because it requires like a little, you have to kind of like make it, you could have to talk about it in a high level, but at the same time you have to talk about it in a way where people understand the gist of the situation. That's what makes it complicated, and that's what like made the storyline a little bit more complicated in this film. I didn't find it like hard to follow in a sense. I like the idea of the AI being the enemy. I thought that was totally interesting, but I think that the execution was flawed. There was lacking clarity with certain forces. Spoiler section, 3, 2, 1, go. So, So I really liked Haley Atwell's character because she was annoying, but also like she was an orphan. She has trust issues. You can really tell that she's like been let down many times in the past. I really like the last final scene with her where grabbing onto Tom Cruise and he's like, okay, you gotta let go of me. And she goes, it's like, you trust me? Like, it was so funny because
you were laughing a lot. I noticed that. It is, I think it's one of the funnier Mission Impossible movies.
I loved it. Yeah. And it was like, okay, you gotta let go. And then she goes, no, I don't want to let go. I just thought it was like brilliantly done.
Well, I think it was also more like it was very much like Buster Keaton, like silent movie type of things. And I feel like, I don't know if it's like anxiety of influence here going on between the John Wick series and the Mission Impossible series, but I do feel like they're kind of battling for the dominance in the action movie spectacle world.
Yeah.
Because I do think that like John Wick goes into that like slapstick direction with the action scenes, and I think Mission Impossible does that too, and I think it's really interesting and fun. I mean,
speaking of, I really loved when Tom Cruise, he had his, I mean, I think a lot of people know like the bike scene because it was promoted, how he like jumped off of a cliff by himself to do his own stunts. So I knew that was going to happen. But the way he entered that train,
that was great.
He like smashes the train. He goes, "Are you okay?"
Well,
like, it was just so funny. It was just so funny.
Well, it's always a great gag in these movies when Benji is trying to get him somewhere and he's looking at a little map of like, okay, this is where you go. They did this in the last movie too, where he's like, okay, turn left, and he's on a building. He's like, there's you can't see the topographical, layers. And with this one, it's like, okay, go this way, go this way. He's like, I keep getting higher. When does the hill go down?
No, I love how he was like, so I don't see any road. That is the road. What?
The thing is, I'm going to ask you about Gabriel, who's kind of the AI human person aiding the AI. I was very confused about his motivations and why he was in league with the AI for some reason.
That was confusing.
Hopefully they clear it up more in the next movie.
I understand it though, I think.
So what did you think of Gabriel and the Tom Cruise thing of like, okay, this guy killed one of his early partners way back in the day, and that had to force Ethan Hunt to join the IMF. I thought that was kind of weird, and then they also killed off Ilse Faust, who was Rebecca Ferguson's character, and I thought that was really poor. I really didn't like the emotional stakes of that because it just felt like multiple fridgings within a movie that's like, okay, we have to kill off this iconic character who's been in a couple of these movies in order to motivate Ethan, and now he has like a new brunette love interest, and it's like, okay, we're just swapping out these character, like it just felt a little cheap, and I was like, I didn't love that. I didn't buy it.
It did feel like there was a little bit of emotionally detached person romantically when it came to Tom Cruise's character Ethan, because he's like, it feels like he has like a type of like damsel in distress, and when he like that person no longer needs saving, then he's kind of on to another damsel in distress kind of person. It did seem like that because of that. So because I haven't seen like this scene, I wanted to ask you if that's a real scene that they portrayed in the beginning where his partner gets killed. I interpreted that as like his girlfriend because
no. So that's why I didn't like it, because
was that a real thing?
There's been a lot of like in the first movie, his whole team gets killed in like the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
They could have just drawn parallels to that. He's had multiple partners die, in throughout the series. So it's just kind of a recurring thing that they keep going back to. I didn't see why they needed to invent another thing.
So it wasn't in the previous film.
No.
Gotcha. Because me not watching the other ones, I literally thought that was in the previous films that they were trying to recap. So I didn't know how to feel about that. Okay. Well, so at first, because I didn't watch the film and I didn't know, like, because he thought that Gabriel was dead. So I didn't know if they were like, he came back to life and the AI took over. So they did talk about like AI being sentient being, I believe, or trying to become a sentient being or something like that. And so I at first thought that he came back and AI took over his mind, and therefore the AI is him. They're one entity and they're a sentient being, together. But then I realized he's just working for the AI because he like has seen some truth, some power of truth. I thought it was a little corny because they didn't really give any specifics into like what that was. So it was kind of like we all know that something bad is at stake. We just know for sure that whoever gets their hand and tries to control this thing, it's a bad thing for the world. We're going to get into another world war, you know, and possibly destroy the world or go into dictatorship. That was clear. But what wasn't clear is how could they use the AI to really take over the world, to control it? How can you control that? What is the weapon itself? Like, how does it function? And that was not clear at all. And I felt like this being part one, they should have described that a little better. And that was confusing. But I don't like judge his previous partner whom he saved in the beginning dying because it was a moment. I don't think they're using that to motivate Ethan because Ethan was very motivated beforehand because his partner / love interest died in the beginning in the flashback scene. I think that basically shows for the audience like, hey, this shit is real. Like, you know, people, you don't think that anyone is going to have their life spared. Like, people could die left and right, and there's no core characters that they're going to like that is above the plot line. Because sometimes like when you watch certain films, like that person can't die because that person is so essential and such a loved character in the series that person needs to be there, you know.
Well, and I think that's where like also me having seen the whole series, you're kind of going, all right, they're not going to kill off Benji, they're not going to kill off Ving Rhames' character, you know. There's like certain characters that you can tell, and I could also tell like they could kill off Rebecca Ferguson's character in this scene where she's fighting Gabriel, and I'm like, I really hope they don't do that because that would be the very cliche thing to do. And they just kind of do it, and it's like, all right, was her contract up? Like, what was the deal? You know?
I think it was just like, I think it served the plot line to be
and it was it was like an example of fridging. It's like the only reason that happened was to motivate Ethan's character in some way.
I don't see how he was more motivated by that scene.
No, it was unnecessary.
I think he was more heartbroken. Okay, let me take that back, actually. Now that I think about it, yes, I do, because the AI wants Ethan to either kill Gabriel if he catches them, or so I guess that was the AI's way to motivate Ethan to kill Gabriel if Gabriel ever like was captured, so that Gabriel isn't going to become a prisoner. Instead, they could extract information from Gabriel. So okay, so I take that back, actually. So there is a reason. It is for the plot line, I think.
So I feel like he was a weak character, Gabriel. I feel like they had to do these things to make him feel more resonant, more.
He didn't have many interesting lines. He was just more of a shadow of a villain who.
Well, and I get they're kind of doing the point where he's like the Terminator. He's like just a mechanism of the AI. But yeah. I feel like that just makes it less engaging, especially when you look at the previous movie, which we should watch, Fallout. Henry Cavill is so good, and it's because he's just such a dick. Like, they just don't get along. Like, there's just clear animosity there, and I feel like you got to...
Is it funny, the previous movie?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then I'd love to watch it.
I think that this...
I don't want to watch any of the unfunny ones. I want to watch funny ones.
Okay, you'll love 4, 5, 6. You'll love those ones. So basically, yeah, Henry Cavill's great in that one. I do feel like this one was a step down slightly, just because they were lacking that kind of sense of, it was shorter, Fallout was shorter, and also that driving motivation. Set pieces, though, are great. And I really think like the second half of this, or part 2, will be really great. And I have a theory because, right, they're going to have to go to the submarine now. So there's going to be some submarine set piece.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
I wonder if they're going to do the Titan implosion kind of like thing because it's such a popular thing.
Yeah, well.
Or like the Titanic type of I don't know.
There's got to be something cool with that. Like
I think so. Stuff. But I will say one other funny scene before we wrap it up is that the airport scene where he's like, he has to be here somewhere. That's what the CIA people are thinking. Uh-huh. And there is Ethan just like running in the roof. Yeah. Like, he has to be here somewhere. And he's like running in the roof.
Well, there were so many
funny moments. It was just so
there.
Good in that way, which is why I rated it 10 out of 10, just because I haven't been exposed except for one, but then again, it doesn't really count because I fell asleep on it. To these series, and I just thought it was a great introduction for someone who's never seen it, in order to actually like also me not feel like I'm being left behind or having to like be like tap like what is this person? Who's this person? I thought it was really well. But I can also see how it could be a little bit annoying for someone like you who's been the fan of the series. And it's like, okay, do we really need to do these flashbacks? Because for me, I'm ignorant to like, is this a real flashback or it's not? I just found out right now it wasn't. So, I think they're making it where it serves people like me and also can serve people like you.
Yeah.
But I thought overall it was great. I really loved the face. Like, that was another funny thing when Ethan goes to the CIA meeting with like the secretary guy of defense.
Kittredge.
Yep.
He's from the first movie.
Okay. And then like he puts this temporary poison spray, whatever, up so that everyone kind of like faints, passes out temporarily. He tells him, which I thought was obviously to serve a plot line, by the way. I was like, really? Because it's like, this guy is going to come after you. Why are you telling him you already have one part of the key with you? You know what I mean? So it's obviously to be like, dang, what are you going to do about it? Let's start the movie. Because if you didn't know that I had part of the thing, I can disguise myself to be invisible, then you wouldn't come after me. This movie wouldn't be complicated as much as it is, Yeah. So it was obviously a very straight up, like, we want the movie to begin. So I need to tell you that I have the key, even though I don't need to, so that you can come after me, so that we can have more of an action-filled film. But I really liked how he called for help, or someone called him, and then he like stated in a code language that he was in distress, and then goes, okay, how are you going to walk out of this building? They know that you're pretending to be this guy. And then he puts another mask on it, and then he pretends to be like CIA guy himself. And then he's like, of course, that's who you're going to be. And then he like faints as well. Or he gets like stuck by one of those things, poison thing. Yeah. And I just thought that was brilliant. And I really like that they did that because, like, again, when I saw that he told him that I have the key and I'm gonna destroy it, I'm like, this is very convenient, but the way that scene ended made it worth it for me because it was just very funny.
I'm so glad this movie worked for a new audience,
Yeah.
Like this really, and it makes me excited to show you the rest of the movies, I think you'll really love them.
Yeah.
Let us know your Mission Impossible rankings and tell us what order you think Nadia should watch them.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it.
So, let us know what you thought of the movie. And
talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye.